Blood Time, the podcast that speaks to the bond, the emotion between coach and athlete at the interscholastic and intercollegiate level. Each interview, each segment will reveal that bond and what was learned, how they were transformed, and what each athlete took to the world at large from that transformation. These stories will warm your heart and astound you altogether. Submitted for your approval. Now it is Blood Time.
Hey Blood Time listeners, this is Maverick Peters over at MV Podcasting. Just want to give a quick shout out to our dear friends at Defense Soap. They're doing an incredible job staying on top of the world crisis that is COVID-19. Check them out if you get the chance at www.defensesoap.com. Thank you.
Hey guys, it's Blood Time. It's Coach CIMORONI. Welcome back. I want to thank my guest of last week, John Gramuglia, who came from a storied program at John Carroll University, had the opportunity to coach him, and then went on to build his own storied program at Wadsworth. The stories were amazing, and he's built a legendary program. The school, the public school that won and broke the string of private school state championship wins in 2010 and still has a top 30 team in the country. John Gramuglia, thank you. Today I have an absolute legend sitting to my right. I'm very honored to have this man in the studio. He is a former Ohio State wrestler, former Maple Hts wrestler, former coach at Kent State University, and built a incredibly storied program at Notre Dame College. Welcome, Frank Romano.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Good.
Doing good today?
Good day.
Great. I want to jump right into some questions. I have a lot of questions for you. Frank, I had the opportunity to watch you coach at Maple when I was an assistant coach at Beechwood. Right. I spent some time in your practice room, picked up some things there, and then you went on to coach at Kent State.
Yeah, I was at Kent State for 22 years. I was Coach Ron Gray, who's in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame as a distinguished member. For 15 years, I was his assistant.
Yep.
And then I became the head coach for 7 years. And then I had retired.
Right.
I've actually retired twice, but that was the first time I retired.
Gotcha.
So I had spent 11 years prior coaching in high school, and then 22. So after 33 years, I retired.
Okay.
That was in 2003.
Sure.
Then the opportunity out of the blue, which I really didn't think much of at the time because I was retired.
Right.
And I was actually sitting in a coffee shop, and I was reading the Plain Dealer, which
Right.
not many people read anymore. But
yeah, too bad now it's a pamphlet, right?
So,
3-day pamphlet.
There was this little blurb sentence in the sports section that Notre Dame College, which I really never had heard of,
Sure.
was starting a wrestling program, and I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I actually thought it was, like comical. So I went home and I was thinking about it, and I thought, that's interesting. It can't hurt to inquire. So
Sure.
I inquired, and I had a really good friend help me with because I hadn't made out a resume in a quarter of a century.
Yes.
So I had to update the resume, and my
Right.
friend Henry Risch, who was the superintendent at Maple Hts at the time,
Yeah.
put together a resume, and I had a meeting with the AD.
Okay.
And then it went from there.
Right.
And so we started.
Yeah.
And then,
What year did you start? 5 or 6?
The first season was 2006-07.
6-7.
That was the school year, 6-7.
Yeah.
In the first year, we finished, we were NAIA, which is National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics.
Right.
Which a lot of people aren't familiar with because most everybody's familiar with the NCAA.
Right.
The first year in NAIA, we finished 20th.
Okay.
And the second year, we finished 13th.
Yep.
Then the third year, we finished 5th.
Wow.
Then in the fourth year, we won the national team title. We won the national duels. And then we start winning, and we won 9 titles totally.
Sure.
We moved to.
Well, you had to go to club, right?
Yeah,
Because
we
you
went
had
to
sit
club
out?
for 1
Yeah.
year, a
WCA.
hiatus year for 1 year. So I entered the club national format. We won that, and then the next year we got into D2, and we finished. We won D2 4 times.
Right.
Twice we won the national duels. twice. We won the team title, plus we finished second 3 times.
Wow.
The lowest we ever finished in we were in D2 for 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. We were in D2 7 years. We won 4 titles.
Right.
Finished second 3 times.
Holy cow.
We did finish my last year, which was last year. We did finish 4th.
Okay.
That was the lowest
finished
ever in any national tournament.
How many national champs did you have?
18.
And then you had the ultimate guy, Joey Davis.
Yeah, we had Joey
right?
Davis. He was the best wrestler in D2 in the history of D2.
What was his record?
133-0.
You know, you started your career in one of the greatest historical programs of all time.
Yes.
Anywhere in the country.
Yeah,
Maple Heights with Big Mike Milkovich. You were the captain of that team, and then you went on to matriculate at Ohio State. Tell me a little bit about that team at Maple back in the 50s and 60s, I believe.
I can tell you that. I could say this now because it's over.
Right.
But I never was on a team in junior high or high school that lost a dual meet.
Oh, my gosh.
I never lost a dual meet myself in junior high or high school.
Okay.
And so we won every meet. And in my 3 years, we were state champs my senior year. The team was.
Yes.
I won 2 state titles.
Right.
The team was second in 64. The first state title I won in 65, we were second. In 66, we won it. And we only had 3 place winners.
Huh.
Mike Jr.,
sure.
my best friends, he was state champ. I was state champ. And we had Carl Carcipola was 4th.
Okay.
And a couple of the team members won some matches, but we only had 3 place winners.
So that's how tight the
in those days, there was only 11 weight classes.
Okay.
There was only 4 places, and the scoring system was 10, 7, 4, 2. So if you had 3 place winners, especially 2 champs, you could win it.
But that was everybody was together.
All the schools. There was no separation. It was
right.
all one division.
Right.
And there was only 11 weight classes. And on top of it, the format for the tournaments were, if you didn't lose to a finalist, you were out.
Yep.
So if you got to the semis and lost, you could wrestle back.
Okay.
But if you didn't get to the semis, you were out.
Right.
There were no wrestlebacks. There
Right.
was no wrestlebacks.
Yep.
You had to lose to a finalist.
Yep.
And also in the districts tournament, the tournament before the state meet, generally you had to win the district or come second. Everybody else was out.
Yep.
Matter of fact, in one year, in that time frame in 64, they had a tournament, which was the district tournament, which had the following format. It was a 16-man bracket.
Okay.
If you didn't get to the semis, you were out, and there were no wrestlebacks.
Jeez.
And the guys who lost in the semis wrestled for 3rd and 4th. And only the 1st and 2nd guys went to the state meet.
Right.
So the tournament was over real quick.
Yeah, it was a gauntlet. It was an
there,
absolute gauntlet.
There was no wrestlebacks.
Yeah.
Period.
Yep.
Not even because the guys who lost in the semis wrestled for 3rd and 4th.
Right. That was it.
Just as a consolation match.
Yeah, I remember that because at D1 and back in the day when I was wrestling, that was the Nordonia district.
Yeah, same thing.
When small school A and double A were together, and only 2 guys came out of that district. It was ridiculous.
Very unfair.
Very unfair.
A guy, for example, could win every match throughout the whole year, and get in that tournament and lose just 1 bout, and you're out.
Yeah. Yeah. So
not
that
very
was
fair.
So that was the start of that incredible run. How many state championships did Maple?
Maple Heights won 10 state titles under Coach Milkovich.
Yes.
And 8 seconds. He was there 27 years.
Wow.
And they had 8 titles. Excuse me, 10 titles and 8 seconds.
I'll be that. What was the penultimate thing that Mike brought to the sport?
There were several ingredients. One was he had a lot of kids who were willing, blue collar community and second generation kids. Most of the parents were born in this country, but their parents weren't. And so second generation Americans, hard workers. Big Mike was ingenious in putting together a system, which I used the whole time. I coached for 50 years, and I used the same system. Of course, you tweak it here and there because of the style.
Trust the process, right?
Yeah,
Trust the process.
The process was that we drilled and we did certain moves, and he made sure we spent an inordinate amount of time on our feet in practice. Okay. So we got good at takedowns. Okay. Takedowns are the key. Takedowns are still the key. Sure. I don't care whether you're freestyle or collegiate or high school. If I could take you down and you can't take me down, and I can get away from you, I got to get away. Because I'm going to have to be down probably at some point maybe.
Right.
I'm probably going to beat you.
Yep.
And that's a system that every person who ever coached who wrestled at Maple Hts used.
Sure.
Everybody.
Sure.
I mean, because I know them all for the last 50 years anyway.
Right.
And that's then he had a great feel for how to handle people.
Okay.
He would know what button to push. Each kid's different, you know.
Sure.
Some kids you can, challenge. Some kids you have to do something else, and
right.
There were a lot of different things that he did that were instinctive and that were just his personality. He was forceful. He was very forceful.
I heard he was real charismatic too.
Yeah.
He just commanded a room
like a Pied Piper.
Yeah.
I mean, if Big Mike said something, then you did it.
Sure.
I mean, I could remember him saying things to me that were just hit the spot.
Sure.
I mean, he was it.
Yep.
He was it. And most everybody who wrestled for him, if not everybody, felt the same way.
It's interesting too, because I one of your dear friends, Dominic Imerino,
yes.
who was my head coach,
yes.
really had that same philosophy. Probably learned it from Mike, or from you, or from whatever. But Beecher was great on their feet.
Yeah, got to be good on your feet.
And then a guy like Graham Coghill, same kind of thing. They were takedown experts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, also they were very physical as well at Chanel. Yeah. But you saw that same vein going through those. So he was really kind of like the cradle of coaches. Yeah. That he brought that system to. And it's interesting when I think about my coaching career. Mm-hmm. I love the takedown.
Yeah, you have to be good at your feet. I mean, and even the way the freestyle's going now, they've made takedowns worth 2 points.
Sure,
it's twice as many as there were before.
Yes,
and if you're really good, you might never be in the down position.
But it's also a way to break a guy too.
Yeah,
just take him down, let him out, take him out. And you're all of a sudden this guy's like, doggone it, I'm out of the match.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was it. And you were on that team. Mm-hmm. You then. Did you have the opportunity to wrestle with Tom and with Pat Milkovich?
When Tom was a freshman, I was a senior.
Okay.
I believe that Tom probably would have won the same state title I won as a senior. He was that tough.
Okay.
Yeah, he was tough.
Gotcha.
I mean,
but back then, the freshmen couldn't wrestle, right? He couldn't.
Yeah, the freshmen couldn't wrestle.
Okay.
Our high school at the time, Maple Hts, was a 3-year high school, 10, 11, and 12.
Gotcha.
Same when I wrestled, when Tommy wrestled.
Right.
Of course, no one ever defeated Tom in high school or junior high.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Tom was very tough, and he went on to prove that he recently actually got into the Michigan State Hall of Fame. I went up there with
that's fantastic,
and I went up there to support him, and with my good friend Derek Beckany and all his brothers were there, and Tom gave a great speech. I mean, he just class all the way.
I had a chance to have just a brief, intimate conversation with him at his father's funeral.
Yes.
And he was very gracious. He was so happy that I came. It was like, wow, me? It was really cool. He was a very gracious guy.
When he gave a speech, when he got inducted into the Michigan State Hall of Fame, he started out the speech by talking about his younger brother.
Oh.
Not about him.
Okay.
Talked about Pat, how great Pat was.
Sure. Because
he was the youngest national champ in the history of collegiate wrestling, which would probably hold that record forever because he was only 17 in about 7 or 8 months. And so just a very gracious speech, and everybody applauded him for it, and he could wrestle.
We talk about Pat. Pat was second twice, champion twice.
Pat was a 4-time finalist.
Right.
2 firsts, 2 seconds. He's in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame as a distinguished member like his dad. And great family.
It's an amazing.
Amazing. Yeah.
And then you get the job.
Yeah.
You get the job. Mike retires, and you get the job as the head coach at Maple.
Well,
how did that feel?
I wanted that job. After spending, I started out at St. Ed's as an assistant. Actually, Big Mike got me.
That's a terrible program, too, St. Ed's.
Well, it was at the time. It was. At the time, it was. We had like 12 guys on the team.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Big Mike got me that job.
Okay.
When I came home from school that spring, he said, "Do you want a job?" I said, "Well, that's one of the reasons I went to college. I want to be a teacher and a coach." And so he says, "You drive over to St. Ed's and you talk to the people over there, and you got a job."
Isn't that funny?
So that's what I did, and I went over there. And Ferguson was nowhere in sight at the time.
Right.
Joe Figler was the coach.
Right.
He's deceased now, and I talked with the AD, and I became the assistant coach. And Tom Cousino was on the team.
I'll be darned.
Tom was a freshman.
Yeah.
He was a 126-pounder, if you could believe that.
Oh, my God.
Tom Cousino, as a freshman, and if he's listening to this, he'll be laughing. He was a 126-pounder, and so he was a little guy like me, and we'd wrestle every day. He was just a freshman in high school. I mean, it was like, But then later on, he was heavyweight, and
Yeah, and he
he
took
weighed
fourth.
226 pounds.
And he took fourth that
Yeah.
year. It was my senior year in high school, and he lost to Golick in the semis.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah,
And Golick ended up being
he lost
champion.
to Golick. He was in a state meet and placed in state, and he was like 100 pounds better. That was my first job, and then I was at Kenston for 2 years, and we had a good run. We were fourth in the
That's
state.
another storied program.
Yeah,
Zinn Gorby was there, right?
I got the job right after the state
Zinn?
championship. Yeah,
Right
I went there in '73.
Okay.
And they won the title in '72.
Right.
So I was an assistant for the first year with Zinn Gorby.
That was with Ralph Graham and Tony DiGiovanni. Was Tony on the
no,
team?
Tony and Ralph had graduated.
Oh, they had graduated. Okay.
They had graduated already, but I had Albert.
Gotcha.
And Albert was my first state champ.
Sure.
He was state champ in 1974.
Right.
And then I left Kenston and I went to Elyria, and I got that job because of the story I told you with Vince Matucci.
Another Hall of Famer.
Yeah, Vince Matucci's in the Ohio Wrestling Hall of Fame. And I was at Elyria for 3 years, and then I knew Big Mike was retiring, and
Sure.
I knew that Mike Jr. did not want to take over the reins, so
Right.
I applied, and I got the job. And so I was there 4 years, and then after being there 4 years, I taught 2 more years, but that's when I started at Kent State.
Sure.
I actually started at Kent State as a volunteer.
Okay.
I was a volunteer,
which is
for the first 2
which is
years.
very common.
Yeah,
I was a volunteer at John Carroll until I got the GA position. So it was very common at the college level to tell me about that philosophy about being a volunteer. What did that what did that mean to you?
What I did was when I knew I was leaving Maple Heights, I actually talked to all three. To be perfectly honest, I talked with all 3 college coaches in the Cleveland area because I wanted to coach in college. I talked to Dick Bonacci, I talked to Tony DiCarlo, and I talked to Ron Gray. And the first person that came and
so
said,
Bonacci, just to paint it, Bonacci's the head coach at Cleveland State.
Yes.
DiCarlo, of course, Hall of Famer at John Carroll. And of Ron Gray at Kent
Ron
State.
Gray, who's in Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
He's a
so they're all Hall of
distinguished
Famers.
So
exactly.
It worked out best, and I went to Kent because I was in graduate school at Kent. So I thought this would work out good. So the first 2 years, I was a volunteer, and then I got hired as assistant coach, and then I stayed 15 years as Ron's assistant coach.
Sure.
And actually, what really occurred after 15 years is that we switched roles.
Gotcha.
And Gray came up with the idea, Coach Gray, and we switched roles. And then for 2 more years, Ron continued to coach, and then I stayed 7 years.
Yes.
And then I retired in 2003.
Okay.
And then at 2003, I still wanted to, have my finger in the pie a little bit. So I contacted my good friend Dick Bliss.
Sure.
And I went over to Aurora and was a volunteer there.
Yeah.
For 3 years.
Yeah.
With
That
Dick,
was
and they had good teams.
Really good. Well, that's when they took
good teams.
They took third.
Yeah.
In 02.
Yeah.
Or 03, I can't remember what year it was, but Beechwood took fourth, and they had a good run.
And in I think it was, I might be wrong on the year, but in the 90s.
No, actually, Beechwood took second to them, I think.
They took second. Aurora won 1 state title, team title.
Yes.
And then I stayed 3 years with Dick Bliss, who's in the Ohio Wrestling Hall of Fame also.
Yes, he is.
Then the opportunity started at Notre Dame. And so, and I hired Anthony Ralph only because... Anthony wrestled for me.
Sure.
Anthony is a distant cousin of mine.
Okay.
And when I first became aware of Anthony Ralph, my mother was a great wrestling fan when she was alive. She lived to be 96.
Oh, fantastic.
She was a great wrestling fan. She would come to the Big Ten tournament. She came to the national tournament I wrestled in, and all the matches when she could. And my father came too. And she told me when I was at Kent, she said, we have a cousin, distant cousin, who wrestles. I go, really?
Okay.
What's his name?
Yeah.
She goes, Ralph. I go, Ralph.
Huh.
How's
that a distant
how's that? She goes, no,
American.
you don't understand. His mother is a relative of ours.
Oh,
okay, so I go, so I start watching him, because I was recruiting all the time. He took second as a freshman.
Right.
And then later on, he won 2 state titles. And so he was the first person I signed to come to Kent to wrestle, and he won the MAC for me.
Fantastic.
And he was the captain of the team. Yeah. And and I hadn't seen him once he graduated.
Yep.
For a long time, and he sent an email. And so I picked it up, and luckily he sent a phone number because I really wasn't too computer literate at the time. And so I called on the phone. I said, Aunt, how are you? And I talked to you. He goes, well, what are you doing? He says, well, I'm volunteering at Chanel, and
Sure.
he was like Jager's personal coach.
Oh, gotcha.
He was
Yeah,
Jay's
yeah,
personal coach,
yeah.
and because he went to Chanel too.
Sure.
And he said, I own a painting company. I go, well, how'd you like to be a college coach?
Wow.
And he said, yeah. So I hired him right over the phone. I said, I'm not gonna be able to pay you much money, but
Yeah.
we're gonna start this program. And I knew Anthony, and Anthony and I were friends. We're still friends to this day.
Sure.
Good friends. And so that's how we started. And he just started out part time, and then we started moving at such a fast pace that I was able to make him full-time assistant.
And he really knows how to recruit.
Yeah, we sat down because at the time Anthony really never coached college or recruited because he's never been a coach. We sat down and we had some couple major tenets that I always worked with.
Okay.
Especially since we were D2. I said, number one, when you go out recruiting, try to recruit the best guy you see. Don't be intimidated because he's won 4 state titles or 3 state titles or 2 state titles.
I like that.
Because there's a lot of people might want to go to a small school.
Yeah.
And second of all, we had a lot of money because they gave us the full complement, which was 9 scholarships.
Yeah,
That's not a lot. It's not every year, but 9 was the maximum in NAI and maximum in D2. And I said, if you see a guy who maybe, someone in the Big Ten is recruiting and they're going to give him 20%, we'll throw a full ride at them, and we'll see. Money talks, nobody walks.
Sure.
And so when the parents get involved and they say, "Well, this school over here is giving us a full ride, and over there they're giving us 20%." Now it's very prestigious to wrestle in the Big Ten. I know all about that because I wrestled in the Big Ten. But money is still money. Yeah. So we worked with, and he worked very well with those 2 tenants, and then he was relentless.
Sure.
And relentless, 24/7, all the social media, very personable, and it worked. And it worked from the standpoint he did, the big bulk of the work, and I was pretty much the closer.
You were the closer,
because that's usually how it works.
He set the table really nice.
Set the table.
Yep.
And he would find people like, he found Joey Davis.
Sure.
Found Joey Davis.
Yep.
And, when Joey Davis is in California, in the day that we made the decision, the father called, Mr. Davis called and told Anthony, if you don't come out here like right now, we're not coming. So Anthony went right to the airport. I said, I don't care what it costs. Go to the airport, fly to California. Yeah. He did, and he got a verbal from him, and he flew right back.
Well, this is an amazing story because here you got Anthony Ralph, who now is basically the recruiter for Ohio State.
They had the number 1 recruiting class in the country last year.
It's an amazing story, coming basically from just humble beginnings.
Humble beginnings.
And then bringing in Joey Davis, who is the only undefeated 133, and wrestler in
best
D2's
guy in
history.
D2 ever, probably.
So
ever
there's your 2 amazing success stories.
Yeah.
Coming together in one basically.
And I've told Anthony the following. I said, you've had the number 1 recruiting class in the country in D1.
Jeez.
We had 6 years in a row. We had the number 1 recruiting class in the country in D2.
Right.
He had the number 1 recruiting class in the country in NAI. So in 3 divisions, and when you have the number 1 recruiting class in D2, or D3 or NAI or JUCO, what they do is in D1 it's just D1, top 25 recruiting classes. In the other poll, which is done by Danny Fickle, they combine junior college, NAI, D2, and D3.
And he got that.
And we were 6 years in a row.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, 6 years in a row. It wasn't even close. Really. Great recruiter. And that's how you win. You win.
Sure.
You have to coach. You have to.
No doubt.
You have to coach them. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But if you don't get the material, it's hard to win.
Sure.
At a high level.
Yeah.
And so we were getting great material, and that doesn't mean everything went perfect, but if you don't get the material, you can't coach them.
There's no question about it. And I've been on the opposite end where I've revived programs, and boy, that is just sometimes
it's crucial.
Just brutal.
Yeah, it's
if you don't get good guys, and because you have to have that lead dog too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody to show work ethic. Like just recently we released the Ryan Peters episode. The greatest work ethic I've ever seen in any level, and I've had the opportunity to coach at the college level too. And all of a sudden, you see some guys going out, and they're 85% of him, and they're making state because they have that same work ethic. They see the lead dog doing what it takes, and then they come aboard.
Yeah, you have to have that work ethic. If you don't, then you have very little chance of succeeding. Even if you have great talent.
Yes,
a lot of people with great talent.
Sure,
but not that many people with great work ethic.
And Frank, that leads me to some of the questions. You shared the craziest Don Horning story.
Yeah.
Where you thought you were going to get a a national finalist, maybe a national champion when you were at Kent.
Yeah.
And he got pinned at 6:59.
Yeah.
But that's not work ethic. That is just a freak.
Yeah, it was a freaky
situation.
thing. The match against Bonomo in the semis that
Right.
year, and I think it was 85.
Yeah, because he graduated in 83.
Yeah, he came from
Walsh,
see, Donnie went originally. He won 2 state titles at Walsh Jesuit, and then
Right.
he went to Northwestern.
Okay.
And as a freshman at Northwestern, he was 5th in the Big Ten, and then he had some academic issues. And
Right.
like a long story short, then he had to leave, and then he came back from Northwestern, and then he had to leave again, and we picked him up, and we had him for 2 national tournaments.
Okay.
But actually only a year and a half eligibility wise. He took 3rd because he lost in the semis. The next year, he was kind of a tweener between 18 and 26. He couldn't really get down to 18 again. Got down as low as 21, and so he ended up going 26, and he finished 7th.
Okay.
So he was a little small for the weight.
Well,
so
just recap that story.
Okay. And the year he came to Kent State from Northwestern, he had to sit for a whole year. He had to get his grades up.
Right.
And so he was what they call he was ineligible.
Yeah.
And but he did wrestle unattached in opens and so forth. In that first year, we said you're gonna wrestle in the Midlands. You could wrestle in the Midlands unattached, and so he did.
Right.
So in those days, we're talking 30-odd years ago.
Sure.
There was no media the way it is today, and so I remember him coming back from the Midlands, and I remember talking to him. I said, "So how'd you do?"
Yeah.
He entered on his own, unattached, 118. He goes, "I won." I go, "What? You won the Midlands?"
Yeah.
He goes, "Yeah, I won the Midlands." I go, "Really?" I said,
That's
and
crazy.
he said, "I also was OW." I said, "You were OW?" He goes, "Yeah, I pinned the Okie State guy in the finals." And I go, "Seriously?" He goes, "Yeah, seriously."
That's
It was
wild.
just like, so he
Yeah,
won.
like no
he
big
won
deal.
the Midlands.
Yeah,
It was
like
no big deal.
Yeah.
So
And
he
he's
had
the
a guy.
OW besides
He was
that,
OW in the Midlands.
Yeah.
So then the next year he was eligible the second semester. That's when he took 3rd. And then the following year,
Tell us that story.
Well, he got in the semis
yeah.
against Bonomo, and Bonomo ended up in his career being a 3-time champ, 3-time Division I national champ, and he had Bonomo 9-3 in the semis. There were 12 seconds left, and we were getting real nervous because we think he's going to win. I mean, you're winning 9-3
with 12 seconds left.
12 seconds left.
Yeah.
He went off the mat, came back to the center, and we know he's going to stand up. He's not just going to flatten out. He's going to still try to get out because burn the 12 seconds. And he stood up, real good stand up, and Bonomo did. This is radio, you can't see it or anything, but if you could picture this, Bonomo let him stand up, and then he backed off, and he shoved both of his arms under Horning's armpits, and kicked him with his knee, which is a move which you very rarely ever see.
Right.
Kicked him with his knee. Horning's body went parallel to the ground, about 5 feet off the ground. He let him drop through the hole, and he hit him with a reverse half and stuck him.
Unbelievable.
And that's how the match ended.
At 6:59.
Yeah.
That is just the craziest
we were
story.
stunned.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Bonomo went on to win in the finals.
Yeah.
If there'd have been, it was such a huge score. There were no Tech Falls back then.
Right.
There were no majors, but he won on a huge score on a guy who Donnie had beaten during the year.
Sure.
So, but then he roared back, and it was hard because, he was devastated, and he took 3rd. So then the next year, he ended up having to go up a weight, and he ended up 7th. And he was OW in the MAC.
Yeah.
Pinned everybody in the years he was in the MAC, the 2 years. And I thought he was one of the best kids. The Coach Gray was the head coach.
Sure.
At the time that we had, because he was 2-time national champ. But another good story would be Doug Dake.
Oh, yes.
Because Kyle Dake, who's 4-time champ.
Well, Doug was the first state champion from Westlake.
That's correct.
And I coached against him at the Kenston tournament.
That's correct.
Back in 1980.
First state champ for Westlake.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this because I love Doug Dake, and Kyle Dake's his son, and the whole bit. But in that freak year, there was what's his face from St. Ed's.
Okay.
Kalski,
the resident destroyer.
He was real tough. Yeah, he was real tough.
Yeah.
And Kalski in the state meet slammed a guy.
Yes.
Got DQ'd.
Yes, he did.
Got DQ'd. And
and it was the big talk of the
big
tournament.
talk of the tournament. Because he was the big favorite. I mean, Dake was very good.
Right.
But Kalski was
he's an animal.
Yeah, he was a prohibitive favorite, and he got DQ'd, and then
Right.
Doug won the title.
Yep.
So Doug goes to Ball State.
Right.
And he was very good.
Yes.
And there was another kid on the team at Ball State named Baker.
Okay.
Ron Baker. So, but we were sitting at the Coach Gray and I were sitting at the West Virginia Open, and we knew that they were dropping wrestling. So we made a run. Coach Gray made a run at both of them, and we recruited Ron Baker and Doug Dake, and they came over to Kent for 2 years. They both won the MAC both years.
Right.
And Ronnie Baker actually was the OW in the MAC that 1 year.
Huh.
And then Doug, his senior year for us, was 7th. He was All-American.
Okay.
Pinned the guy for 7th place.
That's fantastic.
And then years later, obviously years later,
That's right.
when his son was a freshman at Cornell,
yes,
I was for some reason not putting 2 and 2 together because everybody was talking about Dake, and we were at the national duels at Northern Iowa, and he was wrestling for Cornell, Doug's son, and he was doing really well, and someone said to me, "Well, that's Doug's son." I go, "Really?
Holy cow!
Really? Oh my God!" And then I saw Doug, and I go, "Is that your son?" He goes, "Yeah, he's pretty good." Yeah. I said, "Yeah, he is pretty good."
He is pretty good.
He won 4 titles in 4 different weights, and it's a wonderful family.
Yes.
See, the story is that the father, the grandfather,
right,
Doug Dake's father, they're from Ithaca.
Okay.
They're from Ithaca, New York. They're a wrestling family.
Gotcha.
His father was actually Doug Dake's father. Kyle Dake's grandfather was the wrestling coach at Westlake.
Okay.
And he was in Cleveland.
Sure.
And that's how Doug and his family were in Cleveland, but they were originally from Ithaca.
Oh, gotcha.
And then, once Doug graduated, he married a woman who was a gymnast at Kent. Now they live back. I'm not sure if they're back in Ithaca or they're in Cleveland. I haven't seen Doug in a while.
Right.
And another ironic story is when Doug Dake had Kyle, and he was like 2 or 3 years old. He brought him into the wrestling room at Cornell.
Okay.
And the coach at the time said, "Wouldn't it be nice if your son could wrestle for us?" And he was like 2 or 3 years old.
That is so funny.
And look at how's that for irony?
Yeah,
that's true story.
That is incredible. That is an incredible story. It's amazing, the 6 degrees of separation in wrestling is 1, 2. You know what I mean?
Very close. Everybody's very close.
Exactly. And of course, you had the opportunity. You were, I believe, a captain at Ohio State.
I was a captain twice at Ohio State.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Which
my junior and senior year.
And you wrestled obviously in the Big Tens. And, had a great career there.
Yeah.
Tell me. I want to circle back to the Notre Dame dynasty that you created. There has to be some, obviously you had national champs, you had Joey Davis, you had Anthony Ralph on your Sonny Marchetti, all those cats that came together and just had this A+ team of coaches and athletes and everything. But there's also got to be that story. This is what Blood Time's all about. We are blood. That you took a kid that maybe this was his 5th chance, I don't know, 10th chance, 2nd chance.
We had a lot of those.
Whatever. Yeah, of course.
We had a lot of those.
I call it second chance you. Some guys could call it last chance you.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
We had a lot of those.
But now that guy, you get him into the room, you get him on the right path. He does his thing, and now he's doing some things out into the real world. Is there a story like that you'd like to share?
we have several people like we have Charles Mason. He's the head coach down at in Cincinnati at Mount St. Joe's.
I'll be darned.
We have a lot of people coaching. Pelton coaches, Mo Miller coaches, Kobe Fear coaches. A lot of our kids early on were transfers. The first 3 or 4 years, we had transfers from Edinburgh, Lock Haven, Eastern Michigan,
who's who?
Central Michigan, Missouri.
Well, heck, Jake Goodwin, my assistant coach, was a Drexel.
Drexel, right? Throw him in there.
Sure.
We had a lot of kids who wrestled in D1 and then came down to the D2 and were successful. Sure. And that's hard to do because it's just not easy because you got to get adjusted to a new system and new school. And wrestling is always hard no matter what level you're wrestling.
Right.
And so, but that's how we started out. And then later on, we still had quite a bit of that, but it was more recruiting right out of high school.
Is there anybody that stands out in your mind? Anybody that you just said, this guy just didn't have a shot, and all of a sudden he's doing something.
One of our best projects is Kobe Fear.
Okay.
Kobe Fear was from Barberton.
Yes.
And he went to Lake Erie College.
Okay.
And that didn't work out too good.
Gotcha.
And he came to us, and he ended up being a 2-time All-American and graduating. And now he helps coach, and he is really a good person. Yes. And he had some things that, it was hard.
Sure.
It was hard, really hard. You know, he came. Not many Barberton kids go to college,
no,
or let alone be
Magics,
athletes.
right?
They play basketball. They don't wrestle.
Magics,
I mean, and Dave was his coach, and
Sure.
Dave Mariolo Jr., who's now at Walsh Jesuit, was his
Terrific
coach,
guy.
and he was he really liked Dave a lot, and he was his mentor. And then I would see Kobe Fear as one of our best projects, and probably the story I told you about. Eric Berge, that was a good story, because Eric Berge, Eric Berge, Eric Berge, like he did not wrestle his senior year because they threw him out of school, and so he ended up going to William Penn, which is a little tiny NAIA school in Iowa.
Yep.
Because I asked him once, I said, "Why'd you go to William Penn? I mean, Western Pennsylvania,
so
you're really
funny.
good."
Yeah.
You know, he goes, "Well, I had to go somewhere." You know, and why we recruited him to come. Is because Pelton beat him.
Gotcha.
Pelton beat him 1 year in the semis. And we thought he was pretty tough.
Sure.
And fortunately, we got him. So there were a lot of stories that that ended up pretty good.
Well, Frank, that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
That's what coaching is. It's that moment in time that all of a sudden that young man says, "Holy cow." Somebody believes in me.
Yeah, right.
Somebody can put me on the right path.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to have my back.
Yeah, that's really important.
And so you've come from programs that, I mean, Mike, right, Milkovich, he had your back.
He had your back.
He was a taskmaster,
right.
but he had your back.
No doubt about it.
And he respected, I think, that you were that warrior that was willing to step on the mat every day and put your reputation on the line.
Yeah, because when in sports, you stick your neck out, you can get it cut off.
Absolutely, especially in our sport, right?
Every day, it's a very humbling sport.
It's
to
a very
say the least.
honest sport.
Very
honest,
sport. Very humbling.
Yes, it is
for everybody.
It is. It's amazing too, because I see a little bit of trash talking come into our sport. I'm like, how do you do that? How do you trash talk in our sport?
You can't do that.
It's the craziest.
You can do it, but it's not going to go.
You're going to really get.
It's not going to go real far.
It's a funny story. I'm good friends with Neil Cornridge.
Yeah,
I think you know Neil.
I know.
And he was Stephen Neal's.
Stephen Neal, man, he was
right.
Great.
Stephen Neal's agent.
Neal. Oh yeah.
And he went to and I believe he's also Belichick's agent. He went to Belichick and said, you got to give this guy a shot. Yeah. And Belichick said, yeah. But and Belichick says to this day that is the hardest working guy I ever had on my team.
Well, I believe that.
And the second guy was Edelman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, Edelman.
Another Kent guy.
MVP at the Super Bowl. Another Kent guy.
Another quarterback for Kent. But there was a story where I think I may have told this in another broadcast, but where McGinnis, Willie McGinnis, he was a badass middle linebacker, was talking trash to Neil. Oh, you're a wrestler, this and that, blah blah blah. And Neil just put him on his head, just souffled him right on his head, and from that point on, he was the guy. He was the guy, right? So it's interesting how we all kind of matriculate through life, right? But having said all that, I really want to thank you for being that guy.
Thank you.
Being that guy, not only when you were in high school and college, but also at numerous high school programs, creating a dynasty at Notre Dame College, creating a respected Division I program at Kent State, All-Americans at all these different levels. Frank, tell me what motivated you and what you brought to the sport that you thought was your thing.
Well, growing up in Maple Heights at that time, wrestling was big.
Sure.
I mean, I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and wrestling was big, and I gravitated towards it. I loved to play baseball, but I wasn't very big.
Okay.
I loved to play football. I was on the football team in junior high, but then when I got in high school, I wasn't big enough.
Gotcha.
And it was agonizing because I had to quit the football team in 10th grade. I was on the team in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade.
Yep. But
then in high school, the guys got bigger, and I agonized over it because I said to myself, well, what if they run me over and break my leg?
Yeah.
And I can't wrestle. Yep. And so I had to tell the coach because I didn't want to really quit.
Right.
But I did.
Gotcha.
And it was a good choice because it worked out well.
Sometimes you just got to.
Yeah, it was hard.
No choice. Yeah.
But then once Coach Milkovich was such, and his assistants, Pat Palumbo, who's still
terrific
my
guy.
mentor, and Bill Barrett, was also one of my mentors. They were the assistant coaches, and they
Is that Ray's dad?
Yes,
Yeah.
Ray's dad
was a state champ for them.
Yes,
Yep.
His son was state champ, and
Yep.
also had Tommy Barrett was third, another son, and it was just a special time. And you get caught up in it. And the Malkoviches were my friends,
Sure.
Mike and his brothers. We grew up together. They would bring me to Canada and Big Mike's place in Canada, and we're just all caught up in it. And it was a thing.
Family.
It was very much family.
Is that what you?
Yeah.
Is
Very
that
much
is
family.
that what is
I
that your
spent-
special sauce? Is that what
yes.
you bring to the?
Yeah,
to
I
the-
probably spent more time at the Malkovich house than I spent at my house.
Sure. Sure.
And that was just special time. It's hard to realize when you're that young how poignant it is and how special it is until it's when it's over, and all the Maple Hts people who wrestled feel the same way. It was just a really special time, and it was unique. It was unique to be involved in something like that. Even years that maybe we were second in the state,
Right.
I always felt we were the best.
Gotcha.
Because that's how he made you feel,
Yeah.
that we were the best, and that just something happened, maybe we didn't win. Like, for example, my senior year, Maple Heights' wrestling team did not win the sectional,
Okay.
did not win the district, but we won the state meet.
Crazy.
And because he had confidence and we had enough firepower to win the biggest tournament, even though because Bedford was really good in those days.
Oh, yeah.
And we had beaten them in a dual meet.
Was that Salupo?
Yeah, well, he was a little later.
Okay.
Salupo was a little later. Mike Salupo was a little bit later.
Yeah.
His father was an official.
Yeah.
But Bedford was very good at that time.
And Euclid was good too.
And
with
Euclid
Clarence
was very
Eckert.
good.
And
Very
then
good.
You had Mike Matavina at
Yes,
Cleveland Heights.
Heights was good.
My uncle was the first first state place winner in the history of them.
For Cleveland
Lenny
Heights.
Arslanian in
Yeah,
'56.
Arslanian brothers.
Yeah, well, that's our cousins, but my mother's youngest brother, Lenny, took third in '56.
Yeah, those teams were really good back then, and it was just a special time, and it was a real heyday for sports,
Right.
Because.
Well, Cleveland was also a city of champions.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You had the
Browns were good.
The Browns were winning titles all over the place. You had Jimmy Brown running all over the place. Otto Graham. You had the '54 Indians that while they lost, they won 111 games or something like that. And,
they won 111 games.
You know what I mean? And so you had this feeling in Cleveland that we could do it. City champions. Right. Yeah. And then I'm sure that family feeling. So this is what I'm hearing is that it's family.
And there were many ethnic groups. Each different city had a certain ethnic group, whether they were Slovaks or Italians or Polish or Hungarian, or whether they were ethnic groups.
Right, they were bonded.
And they were really bonding, and they were mostly blue collar groups.
Yes.
Not many people had a lot of money. It's not like today. It's just different today.
It's interesting too because I think about it, and my father came from 110th and Woodland.
Yeah, there you go.
Then moved to Beechwood back in the day, and so I was one generation removed from the street. I still remember going back down there. Today we have guys that are 3-4 generations removed from the street.
Yeah,
so they've never been in a fist fight. They just don't understand the physicality.
No fist fights today,
right? You know what I mean? It's all words or lawyers.
Yeah.
But anyhow, having said that. This is the thing, and I remember coming in, as a head coach, the guy that was my lead dog was Ryan. Well, his dad was a street kid. You know what I mean? He was a tough that grew up and had to know how to survive the street, and so he was raised with that mentality. Now, granted, he had a beautiful mother that raised him, also to have some elegance. But the point I'm making is that a lot of these guys back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s still had dads that were those guys, and now in this generation, they haven't sniffed the street.
No.
And so the family thing, I think, is even more important today.
Yeah, it is more important.
And that's why this podcast is. I've been driven to do this podcast, this We Are Blood, particularly in our sport. I was on the John Carroll podcast, and I know that you're now helping out there.
Yeah, volunteering.
And that is fantastic. They're blessed to have you. But Mark said, this is the only sport that you can actually say we bled for.
Yeah, you bleed.
You know what I mean? You bleed.
You bleed.
And we got to wipe it up.
Yeah,
now we got to wipe it up with all this, this gear and hazmats and all that kind of stuff. But, I remember, bleeding and taking a kid's, shirt and wiping it up, and and of course you got blood, sweat, and tears. But it's a sport that we bleed for, but we are blood as family members.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
You know what I mean? And
the other thing is the generation, the parents probably lived through World War II and Depression both.
Yep.
Pretty tough people.
I
mean, to live through a depression and a World War, you got to be pretty tough.
Yeah, you do.
So that the children of those people were,
Yep. But I'll tell you what, the people that we're attracting, even when I was at Beechwood and now at Chagrin Falls, they want that. The kids want that. The parents want that. They want that bonding.
People like
they want that family.
Yeah.
They want those boundaries. Yeah. They want that those consequences for bad behavior. Yeah. They want the responsibility. The entire thing that really made us great as a people and as a country. And I don't want to get too off the topic, but I see that from you.
Yeah. Well, people like structure, especially young people. You give them structure, and you give them a reason.
Yes.
And as long as it's legitimate and you have their back, most of the people are pretty reasonable and they'll respond. Some won't, but the majority will.
Frank, I can't tell you that is exactly what I'm all about in this.
Most of them will respond.
And I agree with you 100%. And I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
stories.
Yeah, thank you
stories.
For your 50 years coaching.
50 years, it's pretty wild.
Your your 8 or 10 years wrestling, and bringing all these incredible national champions to our area, to the world, bringing some of these great stories, and continuing at my alma mater, John Carroll University.
John Carroll's had a long storied tradition of wrestling. It's their greatest sport at the
no doubt.
With all the All-Americans they've had, I think they had over 110 All-Americans.
Absolutely.
And many national champs.
And amazing human beings too.
Definitely. I mean, people who have contributed to society. Incredible. And actually even to the point where there's a dorm.
Yes.
Pucelli Hall. I'm going to throw this in there real quick.
Sure.
Pucelli Hall was built by my two uncles.
I'll be darned.
And there's a plaque.
I'll be darned.
There's a plaque inside Pucelli Hall. You will see their names. It's Teresi.
Okay.
And I just talked to my cousin Jimmy. He's on the school board at Maple Heights, and his wife's on the city council.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I
in
know
Maple Heights. That's my first cousin.
Oh, yes.
He's also my godfather.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, Jimmy Teresi's my godfather.
Great guy.
I just talked to him an hour ago.
Fantastic.
And they're his father,
Steve
Teresi, and his brother Sam Teresi, my two uncles, my mother's brothers, were they built that because they were in construction. They had the construction company for about 100 years.
That's a beautiful story.
Which was started by my grandfather in the early part of the 20th century.
I love that.
And so there's a lot of history. That building was built in 35.
Yes.
And they have a big plaque there. And go inside and you see the plaque. And so there's some history there. And
now you're doing your thing.
Well, we're doing a thing, and they're carrying on.
Yes,
they're carrying on.
And you've got a bison over there, Sammy Gross. Good luck to Sammy Gross.
Yeah, Sammy Gross. Shout out to Sammy.
Shout out to Sammy. And so thank you to the Romano family. Thank you to the Teresi family.
Yeah, thank you.
And Frank, again, you're welcome here anytime.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We are Blood with Coach Frank Romano. This is Coach CIMORONI. Love to all.
Defense Soap at defensesoap.com. In the midst of our current health crisis, we at Blood Time want to thank Guy and Gus Seiko and the team at Defense Soap as a beacon of our protection. Body wipes, skin cleansers, bars of soap, shower gels, barrier foams, and disinfectant tablets. All these and more, as Defense Soap is on the front line of our protection. Thanks to the Seiko family and all of the team at Defense Soap. Check them out for all of your protection needs through these precarious times. Defense Soap at defensesoap.com. Thought of the day: stay safe, strong, have faith, and win the day.